Hooty hoo! All right, guys. So back here with another great guest. This is actually take two or three of this because we tried to do this before, and technology difficulties as always. But you make it work. Oh, great. Hold on. Okay. There we go. So I've been trying to find more people, as you all know, and there's people all over the world that are just sitting and waiting to be interviewed. And so, like I said, you got to flip over a lot of rocks and find these people. My next guest is here. You want to tell us your name and obviously where you're from and just a little about you?
Hi, thank you. My name is Carrie Portell. I live in East Central Missouri, and I am here to talk about my story about being hit by a drunk driver 10 years ago. My two daughters and I were hit by a drunk driver.
Right. So now we have to pretend like we didn't have this conversation. But do you as far as that night, what do you remember? And obviously, what is it like when you see those headlights? Is it in slow motion or is it just really sped up?
I feel like I remember quite a bit from that night. The problem is it's kind of like movie trailers. Like I can pick out certain events. It doesn't all flow together consistently, but my family has tried to fill in, a lot of those missing pieces. But what I've noticed between my two daughters and I is that they remember certain things that I don't. Like they remember all of these sparks flying, and I don't remember anything like that. I think I was fixated on his headlights, which in my memory seemed like two of the biggest, brightest white lights I had ever seen.
Right. Yeah. I said before, like the movies kind of make it look kind of cute, and then like they swerve at the last second, and then they're out of there. But um, if it seems slowed down, it really isn't because it's in real time. But um,
Yeah.
you have less likely to get out of it. So what happened to before we get to you and your daughters? What happened to all the other drivers in the incident? The one who caused it, and then the other people that he hit, from what you know.
Yeah. So there were four vehicles involved, and as far as I know, the other two vehicles that were victims that got hit, they were okay. The impaired driver did pass away on impact, and most of the impact was with our vehicle, and all three of us were injured. My two daughters had moderate injuries, and they were able to recover in about 6 weeks. But myself, I was injured pretty severely, and that impaired driver, he passed away on impact.
Did they say why he didn't make it? Because he wasn't a big truck, and he probably should have been the most safe. But uh,
Right, right. Yeah, he was in a big GMC truck. Well, he was impaired. His blood alcohol level was 0.265, which is 3.5 times the legal limit. And out of all four of those vehicles that were involved, he was the only one who was not wearing a seatbelt that night. So, having that many points of impact, I'm sure he had bounced around a lot in the cab of that truck, but he was partially ejected.
gotcha. Um, just like a like kind of off topic, but well, not off topic, but just like a randomly thought is like I notice I don't see as many commercials anymore about like drunk driving. For a while, I was seeing like the ones with the texting, whereas like someone would send a text and then that was the last text they would get. But I notice I don't see as many of those anymore. I don't know why.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I think that they are really targeting the distracted driving with everybody using their phones right now. And it's kind of more the focus, I think, right now than the impaired driving. That's what the media, I guess, is concentrating on.
Right. And that, I mean, that's fine, but I mean, look, they both do damage, but I guess the one that is impaired is probably the one that I mean, I guess you can make the case that people are impaired when they're staring at their phone and their eyes are completely off and they're basically blinded to what's going on in front of them. But there is, I think, I mean, I don't know percentages, but there's more likely that you're going to be okay, or be able to swerve out of the way if you can at least look up and you're coherent, than from someone who isn't coherent at all and is just blasted on alcohol and is just doing whatever it takes to just get wherever he's getting to. So I mean, again, they should cover both, but I think it's
Yeah,
disingenuous to not cover, not just because this is the conversation we're having, but in just overall. You kind of triggered something for me because I'm just like, yeah, I don't see commercials anymore about drunk driving, and
right.
it hasn't stopped. So, it's not like an anomaly. It's it's there. Um, and then there's that stat that came out like you're more likely to die in a car than an airplane because
Right. Yeah. All kinds of stats. Yeah.
right. Okay, so what is the damage that has been done to your two daughters?
Yeah. So my two daughters, they were able to heal in about 6 weeks. My daughter, who was in the front seat beside me, she had a pretty big and deep seatbelt laceration. And my daughter in the back seat broke her arm. And of course, they all had, lots of bruises and some glass cuts and stuff like that. But, looking at our vehicle, you would not think that anyone came out alive, much less, that they just had those injuries. Now, myself, I had 2 points of impact. We had hit head on over on my side of the vehicle, and then he had flipped around to have another impact into the side of my door. So I had the initial impact head on, and everything coming up and crushing into my legs, and the dash was in my lap. And then whenever he crashed into the side of my door, it then pinned me up against the console in my car, and of course caused more bone damage. But again, if you would see our car, you wouldn't think that that is the only damage that I had. I didn't have any organ damage. I did have a concussion, but no major brain damage. I had lots of injuries, but the most was definitely the bone damage, the orthopedic.
Right. Um, because you told me you do have a disability. What is the disability you have? Is there a name for it?
Well, it is the ones that disable me are my pelvis and both of my lower legs and ankles. So they were crushed. And at this point, I say a part-time wheelchair user, but I'm really getting closer to full-time wheelchair user. And it's the damage that was done to my bones. They're just not able to hold my weight anymore. So I take around 1,700 steps a day. So, the first thing I got to do every morning is, what's my priority? What do I want to use my steps for? And then I have pretty significant nerve damage as well. And between those two things, like my pain is never ending. Like it just doesn't go away. And there are days that are better. And then there are days that I'm like, oh my gosh, I call them flare ups because it just seems to just like flare up. And it's kind of a crapshoot on how long those last. I could only be down for a day, or I could be down for, a week to 2 weeks. It just depends how bad it is.
Right. Yeah, that's super fascinating. I mean, it's sad as well, but it's fascinating on the step that you never really, I mean, there's people who can't walk and there's people who can, but you don't think about the people in the middle that are like, I got to use my steps carefully. Um,
Yeah, I'm very confusing to people. I mean, it's even confusing to me because I am in that middle part. It's I'm not totally disabled. I can still do some things,
right,
but if I try to do too much, boy, do I pay for it later.
right, exactly. Wow. So what did you like before all this? Like, how did you, because I mean, you literally had a near death experience. Um,
Mhm.
can you, from what you can remember, like, do you feel like your perception of life has changed? And if so, like, how was it before the accident and after?
Yeah, that is something that has been a pretty significant change. And yeah, I was going very fast in my life before this happened. We have 4 kids that are very close in age, and with them being involved in everything, and we were a very active family. And to come to a complete halt really messes with you mentally and emotionally. So there was a lot of lessons and growth that I had to go through with that. And I feel like the experience, even though it has been the most difficult thing that I have to go through, has really enhanced who I am. The depth of feeling that I have now is overwhelming. Like, I never knew that I could feel the things that I do now, and just, I guess, comprehend how much things mean at this point. So that has been a really big, I guess, eye opener. And I enjoy that part of it. I couldn't wish that this never would have happened, just because I would lose that part of the lesson.
Right. Now, as far as when you mean about feeling, like, can you expound on it a little bit more? Like, what is it that you feel more of? Just like empathy or what?
Yeah, like empathy. And when I go and I speak to audiences, like, I care so much about them, and I don't even know who they are. We don't know each other. It's not like we have a relationship, but I'm so passionate about trying to either one, change their perspective on doing some kind of impaired or distracted driving. Then also, if they are facing some kind of challenge that they don't feel like they can make it through, I want to change their perspective on that as well, because life is never, ever, ever going to go as we expect it. And every single day, as long as we make a choice in our attitude and how we want to react to our situation, that's how you're going to either start surviving. And then once you get past that surviving point, you can actually thrive, even though your circumstances aren't the way that you really feel like they should be.
Right. That's in your profile says you're a survivor to a thriver. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's great because you have to persevere in your pain some way. And I think a lot of people, sometimes people make it look easier than it is. Like just with me, as for instance, like, some people will say, well, you don't look blind. It's like, well, I was like, well, I'm not blind. I said I'm legally blind, which means I can't drive and I'm under the limit of being able to drive, but I can see some, and I make it look easier than I probably should. But that's just because I'm stubborn. I'm a little hard at it, but I'm wanting to have a better life. And I can't do that by sitting in my house crying and, going to get a dog and a cane and all that. Like, I want to see if I can do it without, and I have my whole life. So, um, but I think some people, just like with you, like, they may see you and you're a pretty woman, you have, nice smile, you're really smart. And it's like, oh, look, she's great. But it's like, they don't know how much pain you're actually in, whether it's emotionally or physically, especially physically. Um,
Exactly. And I think that I truly feel that you're correct in saying that, because most everyone only sees a superficial part of your life. They're not in your house and seeing all the struggles that you go through and all the pain, whether it be physical or emotional. And that is one thing that I feel like the emotional pain is just as difficult to deal with as the physical pain. And, most of the time they're not going to see that part and see how difficult it really is. They just see you when you're out. And, nobody wants to see someone who is, a big Debbie Downer and just always complaining about, how terrible their life is. So you don't do that. You try to make the most out of everything. And that's the part that they see. And they think, man, she's so good at that. She's, doing so well. And for the most part, I do, but I definitely have those days where I'm like, man, this is hard. This is so hard to keep going like this.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've interviewed so many people, and I mean, they make me feel better about the stuff I worry about. But, when I interviewed a guy who's paralyzed from the shoulders down, and he's running his own company, and it's like, man, but like, he had stories of, I wanted to die. I don't want to do this anymore. And then he ran into someone who was worse, who was paralyzed from the jaw down. So where he could move his arms and his hands, he just couldn't move anything below that, where the guy from the jaw could literally only move his mouth and face. And
Yeah.
he was cracking jokes with them and saying, "Hey man, lighten up. Like, life can get worse. Look at me." Um, and it's like, and then, again, but I understand it, because I've been in that pain, and where I just wanted to die or just didn't want to do it anymore. Because, it is easier to, like, yes, the once you get over the hump of, and again, I've never done it, so people can call me out on that, but, you know, once you get over the hump of, like, yeah, I don't want to live anymore, and you committed to killing yourself, then once you do it, like, the easy part is technically over, because all your problems go away, but you leave so many problems for everyone else to kind of pick up. I mean,
Yeah, I feel like you basically just transfer your pain to them. So I can't say that, those people who have those thoughts, it's difficult when you have chronic pain and you just want it to be done, but ultimately you are just transferring your pain to the people who love you, because they want you here regardless. They don't want to lose you.
right. Yeah. Um, so what do you do for your pain? Because I know, like, it sounds weird, but a lot of people smoke weed, some people with the CBD oil, and obviously there's medications, painkillers and all that, but that could be a problem in itself. So is there anything you do for it, or you can do?
Yeah, I feel like taking care of myself, like my pain management is a part-time job, because I have to do so many different things. Um, with having bone pain, nerve pain, and then having the traumatic arthritis, I have to do a combination of everything. One is I really need to keep myself moving and flexible as much as possible. So I do Pilates and yoga, very, very modified. Everything has to be on the floor. I take extremely hot baths. So, like if anybody has a hot tub, that is perfect, but you got to get it really hot to really soak into those bones. And I've been getting nerve blocks from my pain management doctor every 4 months, and that seems to be helping. And I try not to use pain medicine as much as possible. I try everything else before I take a pill, because that, when you have chronic pain and it's going to be long term, basically for the rest of your life, you really have to watch that line. You've got to be careful with that narcotic use. And then, yes, I have tried many CBD oils, and I think I finally found one that seems to be working very well.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, because for me, like, my latest problem is, like, I've been having problems with just, like, brain locks, and I just can't focus. My mind is all over the place, and to find the right supplement, the right anything to get it working, because there's so much crap online that'll just say, yeah, take this, and then you don't even know what you're taking,
Yeah.
and the doctors only want to prescribe you certain things, because if they're not going to get paid for certain stuff, then they're not going to prescribe you. A lot of these doctors don't even want to prescribe you stuff like CBD oil, because they don't sell it, and you can't get it
Right.
at the pharmacy. You just get it at some tobacco store or wherever,
Right.
a CVS or whatever. And so it's hard to find, like, a trustworthy person that's actually steering you in the right direction, saying, like, look, man, like, I'm going through this too, here's what I take. And then even if they do that, maybe it won't even work for you. Like you said, CBD oil, like, there's so many different ones out there, different milligrams and flavors and so on and so on. So many ways to take them, that it's like, it's hard to even really know what's the one that's even going to work for you.
Right. And then that's where you start trying, anything and everything, because it may work for minor pain, but for the pain that you have, you'll use the whole bottle in such a short amount of time. You can't afford to do that.
Right. Yeah, it's very frustrating, because like with me, I take so many damn eye drops and ointments and so on, and it's just like, now that stuff to prescribe for the doctors, but when it comes to, like, I've been taking care of my mental health through Zoloft, but it's like, I really want to get off that, and I want to be able to take care of it naturally and not have to deal with all this stuff, because I feel like some of that is part of the mental blockage. And But it's like, but I also have the worry of like my depression's not like I usually have that, it comes and goes, but it's the anxiety that is completely stopped because of the medication. So I don't want that to come back because it's so unrealistic
Yeah.
and nonsensical that it's like I just want it gone, and the Zoloft controls that from ever coming out. And so that's my biggest worry. But it's like, again, finding these right things. Like for you is for your pain, it's like you got to find the right supplement. You go through so much money and so much time and research online, and it's just like everyone's pointing in all these different directions, and this is your life you're trying to fix.
Yeah.
And it becomes very frustrating at times because you don't know who to trust, and you don't know what's the most reputable source.
Right. And that's the thing. You want it to be, you don't want to take something that's going to hurt you. And you don't want to waste it either. So it's interesting because like you're probably the first person who's interviewed me that actually understands what I'm talking about. Because I mean, unless you live it, you can't really have that true empathy because you just never experienced it before.
Yeah, and like what you were saying earlier, um, just the empathy, like even what you say, like it emotionally affects me. Like I'm not bawling my eyes out, but it hits close to home because I nearly died when I was a kid, and like I said, I deal with stuff every day. Um, it started when I was 4, but like I still have pain from it, and you got the thoughts, and you got you just got a lot of things just floating around, and life is impacted through your disability with me with my eyes, and it's like, but in a positive way too, because I say that it humbles me too, because there's never a day that I wake up and I just go like, you're too good for this world. Never. Because as soon as even when I can laugh it off too, because there's times where, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like, in my TV, the audience can't see, but we're on camera, my TV's way over there. And it's like, and I'm actually sitting next to the couch right now. And it's like, there's times where I'm like, I'm going to watch a movie from back here. And then like, you idiot, you can't see from over here. What are you doing? Go over there. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's just a little like trigger to go like, oh, okay, stop being stupid. And just remember that, life can be silly and, it can throw you off, but remember you're back to who you are, and just go watch your movie over there and act like, cause people will look at like my computer when it's all zoomed in, and it's like, how do you live like that? It's like, I don't know. It's just, I'm used to it. I made everything
It's
acclimated to my lifestyle.
Yeah, it's your new normal. So that's what it becomes.
Right. And yeah. No, I'm sorry. And that's why I kind of laugh at all these people that are freaking out about the COVID thing, because it's like, people are like, oh my God, like how do we get used to this? And again, I hate the mask. I hate all this crap. I really do. But it's like, it's funny because like I've lived a lot of my life indoors, and it's like, you're just getting acclimated to my life. I'm being
Right.
more
Yeah.
active and proactive in my life now, but it's like, you people are complaining that you get to spend time with your families, and like I live alone. I live with my cat. So you guys you're sad about all this, but it's like, man, like be happy, like take care of the people that are out there. And like I said, everything is worse. So, it just,
It's all about perspective. That's for sure.
yeah, and that's why I said the people with disabilities are the ones that usually have a different perspective. We have the ones with the empathy and the ones that are care for people that are going through some things. I mean, most of us, not all of us. We're less self-centered because we are going through something, and when we hear someone going through something else, even if we can't completely comprehend, like I don't know what it's like to be deaf. I have very good hearing, but I can imagine because I know what one of my senses is like when it goes down, and
Um,
and then with you, like chronic pain, like I've had a lot of pain over my lives, and like all my skin burned off at one point. It's excruciating pain. Um, just like as like a side note, like what do you say when a doctor asks you, like when you actually have, let's just say you have another problem, I don't know, you're vomiting or whatever, and a doctor goes, from 1 to 10, what's your pain? Because I always give a sarcastic answer, because it's like, look, to answer this question, I have to say 9 or 10 for you to treat it. But for me, skin burning off is a 10. So
right.
whatever I'm dealing with right now is not a 10. It's not even in the same ballpark. So obviously the physical pain that you go through is probably a 10, but going through vomiting or whatever is probably a 3 in the grand scheme of things.
Right. It's nothing compared to, I talk about that a lot is, our pain scale is completely different from a normal person's pain scale. And anytime that they would ask me that, I would say, okay, on my pain scale, I'm feeling like it's a 6. But if a normal person would have it, it's probably, an 8 or a 9.
Right.
And luckily I stick with all the same physicians, so they know my case, forward and backwards. So they understand, and they'll just tell me, we need you to say it's this number so that we have, I guess, the criteria, like you said, to treat you the way that you should be.
Right. Absolutely. Um, so one of the things I wanted to ask you, like, and I pretty much know the answer probably, but are you are you happy because you're as a mother? Are you happy that what happened to you didn't happen to your daughters and it happened to you instead?
Yeah, I have been asked that a lot, and I think that is part of the reason why I've handled it as well as I have, because as a mom, you always want to take the brunt of everything. I couldn't stop this from happening. I couldn't stop them from getting hurt. Now, I did everything that I possibly could, apparently, when we were in the vehicle to try to avoid it. But if they had been hurt worse, or if one of them had been the person to die in the car crash, I can't say that I would be as humble as I am, because I don't know that. I hope that I would have had as good as attitude that I do today, regarding myself, but I think there would probably be a little bit more bitterness if one of my children had been hurt the way that I've been hurt.
Right. Well, I think your inner mom would come out even more because a lot of moms that I've interviewed or a lot of people I've interviewed and asked them about their moms about, like, especially if it's something from birth,
Yeah.
usually the parents usually have this guilt, especially the mom, guilt towards, oh, did I create this? Is this the reason why you can't walk or hear or whatever? But with yours, you did everything you could, and really there were some bruises and, some breaks here and there, but in general, like, they end up being okay. Um,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, I'm sure, like I said, it's much better for you just mentally, just to know that they're fine. Because again, like, that's, you bring them in this world, you're there to protect them. Uh,
Absolutely.
and so you did what you could, and, because I think, I mean, again, even if, obviously, thank God it didn't happen, but if one of them were to die or something bad happened to them in that incident, it isn't your fault because, again, you weren't intoxicated and you still tried to do everything. But I'm sure you probably would have had some sort of thoughts of, like, what could I have done differently? Um, but, I guess in some ways it all came out for the best, I guess, for them anyway.
Yeah. Right. Right. I agree that it came out the best, because I'm bearing the brunt of that, and they get to go on. And I feel like that is the way that it should be.
Has that made I mean, I don't know your relationship with them, but I'm assuming you're close, but has that made the relationship with them closer? Because you said you have 4 kids.
We definitely share something, that most children and parents don't share. They were 10 and 12 whenever it happened. And then our other two were 8 and 13, I guess. We definitely all share something different, but kids are kids, they're pretty resilient. They went on to be normal teenagers, and they are definitely more cautious, I think, than the normal teenager. But whenever any of us start to talk about it, it takes us right back to that moment, and things feel very raw. And I am the one who talks about the most, obviously, because I share. But anytime that I see our kids talking about it, I mean, it's an immediate emotional trigger for them.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. How old are they now?
Now they are 19, 21, 22, and 23,
Wow.
24.
I'm sure, I'm sure that's
They're crazy. They're bam, bam, bam.
right. Well, I think because I talked to some of my friends who have kids and they're older, and it's like, it's got to be crazy to have kids that are, in high school or college, and, now they're in their 20s and borderline 30s and all that. And it's like, oof. 'Cause I
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
any.
Yeah, the relationship definitely changes. Like once they get out of high school and they start going through college, the relationship changes, and entering a different phase, which I am enjoying so much.
Right. So how has your family been, not just them, but not just those two, but how's your family been just in supportive of your situation?
Oh, they have all been absolutely fantastic. It has been very hard on them because I've had 13 major surgeries, and every time mom comes home, it's not a 6 week recovery. It's more like a 6 to 8 month recovery for each one. So, having mom basically this whole time, watching her heal from these surgeries is difficult for them because every time I don't know how many ball games or school functions that I've attended, and I'm either in a cast or air boot, crutches, wheelchair. I mean, it's just one thing after another. So for them, that's got to be hard to constantly see your mom in pain and always recovering and just never getting to be normal and just live.
Right. But they're all of the age of knowing. Like it's not like they're very young and
Yeah.
they'll pick up on the idea of like all the sacrifice that you're putting in because they would be I'm sure they'd be very understanding if you just stayed home, but you don't because
Yeah,
you
yeah.
support
And then
them.
they're getting to the age now that whenever they look back on things, they're going to look back and go, man, that was a really, really difficult time for our family. And we made it through where a lot of families, they don't, the stress and the pressure just become too much. And we were lucky enough that we stuck like glue. I mean, sometimes we were holding the pieces together, but we stayed.
Right. Yeah, of course. How does that mentally work, or how's that like fixture in your mind where it's like, usually the mom is supposed to take care of the kids, and a lot of time now it's the kids taking care of you a lot. Obviously, you gotta be grateful for how they grew up, and obviously you play a huge part in that. But how does that like sit on you mentally as just kind of you kind of reverse roles?
Right. That is like, you want to talk about mom guilt. That is something that, I mean, even to this day, even though they take care of themselves, that guilt of they didn't get the mom that they were supposed to have all those years because I was the mom who was out in the front yard playing all the games or, doing whatever we needed to do. And most of the time, I was either in a hospital bed or, on the couch with my feet up trying to recover. And that guilt that basically that time has gotten stolen from us. And I know that the whole thing is life's not fair. And I realize that, but that's probably my one thing that I am a little bit resentful of is that time got stolen from us. And it's not like you can get it back or make it up. I mean, once it's gone, it's gone. So you just have to move forward and, do the best that you can with the time that you have left.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of us just, I mean, we're still young enough, but a lot of us tend to just completely, I don't know, we just ignore the things that are like we could, like I said with 2020, like people just should have taken care of each other. We should have just looked out for each other. And so a lot of this crap wouldn't have happened. Like, for instance, like, statistics of domestic violence and child abuse went up because people were living with each other and they just had it. But again, like that's the stuff that shouldn't have happened. Like the stuff that should have happened is we all look out for each other and make sure everyone's doing okay. Look out for the elderly in our family, or the sick people, the people with weaker immune systems and stuff like that. And just check on people in general, people that we've, whatever, exes or people that we went to school with or whatever. Just check on the people that we still can connect with. And we still got to try to enjoy the time that we have with everybody because again, your kids are now all in their 20s and they're all, going off and they're dating and they're doing all these things. And it's like, it's harder to have family time and all that, but it's like, you still have it. They're still alive. And, I think sometimes we so focused on the past and it's like, oh, how it used to be, but it's like, clearly it's never going to be that way. And at some point, something was going to change for one of you or a couple of you to where that wasn't going to happen anymore anyway. But it's just, it happened this way. And
Right.
so you just kind of gotta, I mean, your life took a turn, but it's like you got to figure out how to, again, like with, with our lives, everything we have to acclimate it to our lives, we have to change things. So we got to go with what's going. We're going in that direction. We just got to figure out how that direction suits us for everything else. Um, and so it's just like, just be happy they're all alive and happy and healthy, and again, of course, and like I said, you're still gonna have your guilt, you're still gonna have your, depression and stuff over it. But again, you still have a strong family bond, which, as you can see, most people out here don't have. Um,
Right, right. And that's been the foundation with my husband and I, our relationship is that regardless of what else is going on, like family is the most important. And that's what we concentrated on was instead of like, even though we were under so much stress, instead of pushing each other away, we tried to pull everybody in. Now, our kids at that age didn't always like that, but my husband and I knew that to keep our family together and whole, that we had to stay together and whole. And it was a hard, I guess, road to travel. And we navigated it. I mean, we just took such little steps. Instead of trying to, rush to the end, we just tried to do it in smaller steps. So each time that we would have a goal or, a bend in the road, something that was unexpected, we had to take it as it was and say, okay, well, how do we navigate now? Because no matter what, we're staying together.
right. No, that's kind of, I mean, that makes it easier to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Obviously for you, like it's not as easy. Me, it's more mental than it is physical. And again, I'm sure mental plays a part, but I don't have as much chronic pain as you do. So, the mental part is what really actually can, I guess metaphorically, but
Yeah.
cripple you to the point where you don't want to get out of bed. And if you have a husband and kids to wake up to every day, the pain is probably a little more manageable, even if it is just god awful. It's like, okay, you wake up and you have a husband next to you smiling, and it's like, okay, like it kind of puts things in a little more perspective, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
And it helps, like you're not alone, because obviously, like that's one of the biggest problems with the disabled community is that a lot of us feel like we're so alone, and and we don't know how to kind of connect with others. And a lot of us don't even really want to venture out because we kind of stay to our own disability. We don't like venture out. The blind, the deaf come together, or paraplegics,
Right.
whatever. We're so scattered and segregated that we don't even really know who's out there. So we just immediately assume that we're all alone, and we don't, and it's like, no, like there's plenty of us. But with you, like you have a family that can keep you grounded and just real. I mean, even though they probably don't know half of what you really go through, at least on the physical level,
Right.
they can, they have enough love and care for you that, they're going to be there for you regardless. Um,
Yeah, they were definitely my reason every day. And, all the time, if, when I was alone during the day, I would think, man, it is so hard. I just don't know how much longer I can do that. Whenever my kids would, come in off the school bus or my husband would come in from work, it was just like, I don't know, there was something inside of me that was my hope. That was my why. And that was the highlight of my day. And I thought, well, gosh, why I can't give up on that. I mean, I love that. So they were definitely the reason that I kept fighting to get to the point that I'm at today.
Absolutely. Well, what is it like to have the realization of like having a husband that stuck with you through all of it? Because there's a lot of people that would just have ran.
Oh,
Obviously,
yes, they would have. I tell him that all the time. I stroke his ego, and he always tells me, he's like, Carrie, you don't have to do that. I love you. I'm going to stick no matter what, because that's what we're about. And just because you have these disabilities now, it doesn't mean that I stop loving you. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, a lot of spouses, they would have, bolted. They wouldn't have wanted to deal with all of this because it's never going to end is the thing. It's like you think, okay, once you're healed, we're done with it. But this is never going to end for me, which means it's never going to end for him either. And I am so grateful for him. And I know sometimes it gets hard to watch me when I'm in pain like that. And I tell him, I'm sorry. Yeah, because I hardly ever complain about it. But, when someone's with you often enough, they can tell just by your demeanor or the look in your eyes that you're not feeling well that day. And I just make sure that I tell him how much gratitude I had for him during that time and now. And even though he says he doesn't need to hear it, I think it probably feels good that he does hear it from me. And I need to say it. I need to tell him how grateful I am, along with everybody else, because we have a whole community that has supported us through this entire journey, and just telling them how much it does for my heart is, I don't know. I just need to tell them that, and I try to pay it forward every chance that I get.
Right. No, that's awesome. Um, so do you have any sort of like light at the end of the tunnel that you hold on to? Because I think everybody with some disability has, like, where maybe if you're paralyzed, you maybe feel someday you're gonna walk, or with me, like, there's surgeries that are out there maybe that can correct some of my vision. Is there anything like that that you're holding on to that maybe, whatever you do?
Yeah, probably the only thing that I don't put too much faith in it yet, but they have started ankle replacements, maybe I think around 12 years ago,
Okay.
and they have started to do them on patients as young as me now, but my injuries are so severe that ankle replacements, like the technology is not advanced enough for my condition. So at some point, I am hoping that it does become advanced enough and that it actually works for me, because mine's not just the ankle, it's the lower leg as well. So I have asked about amputation, and they're like, Carrie, you just don't want to do that. It's not going to help the neuralgia, but there's just, if you keep holding on, we think technology will advance enough that you won't have to lose your limbs. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm kind of in a limbo and just kind of waiting. In the meantime, I use my wheelchair for most everything to try to keep the pain down, because activity and pressure on my ankles definitely does make it worse. But a person who is paralyzed would probably get so angry with me, because the only thing that they want to do is to be able to feel. And there are days when it is so bad, like the pain is just so severe, that I have thought maybe it would have been better that I would have been paralyzed, because then I wouldn't feel this pain every day. But then whenever I have good days, I gotta, I eat my words, because I'm like, oh my gosh, today I can actually do something. I can get up and I can walk out to my car, and at this point I can still drive without controls, and that kind of stuff. So it's a double-edged sword, and that's the thing that messes with your mind a lot, and you just got to try to keep as stable as possible.
Right. No, I thought about that earlier when you were talking about going through your pain, and I'm like, it almost seems like it'd be better if you just didn't feel that part of your body. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think people. You got to take everything, to me, case by case, because it's like if you put everything in like the grand scheme of things, and you put it all into one ball of whatever, and you just say, okay, yeah, like obviously we all would love to be able to walk, and you can walk some and they can't, and it sucks, but to a certain degree, it is good that they don't feel that pain. And to some degree, it is good that you can feel. But then there's the
Yeah,
other side of it, where it sucks that you can feel, and it sucks that they can't. It kind of goes both ways, and it's like
it
you gotta just,
does.
yeah, that's why you have to have the empathy and the understanding, and take case by case and just go, okay, like, what is this person going through? And okay, yeah, like I can see how you could feel that way. I think we're in such a time now where everyone is so offended about everything and so sensitive about everything. But it's like if you just listen and just try to understand and put yourself in other people's shoes, and not, how you would deal with it, but just think how it could affect you, and look at what they're going through and listen to them. And again, that's one of the huge problems nowadays. No one listens to each other. Everyone just kind of just goes, okay, wait till you're done. All right, my turn. Or they just plow over you. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, like I could clearly understand both sides of it. Um, and like I said, it sucks that you have to go through what you're going through regardless, but it sucks that someone can't go through what you're going through. Like, in a way, it's,
Right.
it is.
Double-edged sword all the way around.
Right. But again, like I said, it's the stuff that humbles you. It's the stuff that kind of, the fact that you can understand that and just go like, okay, like I don't want to bitch about this too much, because I know there are people that can't feel their legs or their spine or anything. And I'm sitting here bitching about my legs hurting. And it's like the fact that
Yes.
you even think about that, to even care about it when you don't really need to. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
is the good part of it. Like that's what
Yeah.
makes
I feel like every once in a while I need to just put myself back in place. Because I do have friends who are paralyzed and they would give anything to be able to walk. And in their minds, they would give anything, even if it was to feel the pain that I have. And I'm trying to tell them, like, you don't want to feel the pain that I have. So it's, you always want what you don't have, you know?
right. Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, your life, regardless of how hard your life is easier than some. But there's plenty of people, you're on the lower scale of people being below you, but if you want to look at it that way, but in general, it's just like I said, we got to take everything as relative and just look at it like, okay, like, yeah, like there's other people that are going through worse and there's nothing wrong. And again, but that's the thing. Sometimes we kind of see other people that are worse than us and then we forget about like, oh, like our stuff is still valid. Like we still have problems. Like we still have the right to
Right.
complain and feel and so on. So it goes both ways. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, you just got to have an open mind to others and what they're going through. And it's hard because again, you are going through something traumatic. Um, do you have any kind of just like off topic? Do you have any kind of like PTSD from like being in a car?
I do. It doesn't come all the time, but whenever I see anyone getting close to that center line, I mean, immediately like my chest contracts because I know that it can happen in the most random spot and at the most random time, and it could happen, you know, within a snap of a finger. So there are times whenever that happens, or because our car crash happened when it was dark, if I see if somebody hits their brakes really fast and those taillights come up to me, I will have flashbacks. And every once in a while, if I get fixated on headlights coming towards me, it throws me back into that night of the car crash. And those are very scary moments for me. You know, and I consciously pull myself out very quickly. But just knowing that I can go back there that fast, it's anxiety filled.
Of course, yeah, I can imagine. Um, so a lot of times towards the end, I like to like ask people who, kind of give their, I don't know, some motivation to others. Like for people who are kind of, it doesn't have to be someone going through the same problems as you, but if you want to, that's fine too. But just someone who's kind of going through mental, physical, whatever, some sort of pain, and they're kind of in the middle somewhere they're struggling of wanting to live, to survive, and wanting to just even persevere at all in life, even if they want to survive, but just kind of fade away and just not be known. Do you have any advice for like the people that are just struggling? Which
Yeah, I like to tell people that if they use the support around them, and I want to like really emphasize that they need to get positive support and not someone who one is just going to tell them what they think they want to hear, or go into the negative of their situation. They need to have someone that is going to truly like tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. If you use that support system, and then every single day you have to make a conscious decision about what kind of attitude that you're going to have. And that is me. Those two things are my go-tos, because if I wake up and I'm not feeling well and I automatically give in and just when you get that nasty attitude, you can just feel it and nothing goes well when you have that. And then of course that's contagious. It starts to filter into everyone around you. Those two things you have to do on a daily basis. And eventually you will get to the point where you're like, okay, I know I can get through this now. I got through that. And every day that you get through, you have 100% success of surviving your challenges. So just continue to do that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and like for you and for others, like I think some people if you have a support system, you should kind of lean into them, because a lot of people tend to just kind of go off the grid and just don't want anyone to, acknowledge them or just see them how they are. But it's like, this is why we have friends and family, and you really
Yep.
can't do it alone. And a lot of times when you're stuck with your own thoughts, that's when it gets really bad, because the brain could do a lot
Absolutely.
of crazy tricks and send you
Oh,
to whole other places.
definitely.
Um,
Yes, definitely. I just actually launched a book that I go through my first year of recovery. I had 4 years of recovery, and I was very vulnerable and raw and real in it. And I feel like I told it how most authors probably wouldn't. Most would glaze over and just give the superficial. And I felt like I just went into the realism of a situation like this. So if that can help someone, just reading how terrible that first year was, and then seeing me 10 years later, and even though things are not perfect, things are not absolutely wonderful, as part of my physical self, that anything that they're going through, if they just take the same steps, they can survive and then start to thrive, just like my family and I have.
yeah, that's awesome. Just like real quick, did like you said about being raw, like what do you like, what's your take with with mental health? Like how did you deal with yours? And um I don't know, because I feel like it's something that's not discussed enough. I always say, like, the one time
Right,
people want to talk about it is when a kid shoots up a school, but that's just so they
right.
can use it to talk about guns. It's not really to talk about mental health. But it's always been something super important to me, because it's like when you have a disability, it's automatically connected. You're gonna I mean, I think we all have it regardless, like everyone, but it's just the amount that you have. But when you have a disability and you're constantly in pain and whatever, you're going to have some form of it. So how did you deal with yours?
Well, one, mostly I talked to my husband, which he's like a natural born coach, so he was fantastic at it. But sometimes I just felt like I I needed to give him a break, and I also sometimes didn't want to tell him the thoughts that were in my head. So I journaled everything out. And the thing about journaling is you can say whatever you want to, and you don't have to worry about any kind of repercussions. You don't have to worry about hurting anybody's feelings. You can just puke it out. And that helped significantly. And, later on, when I was actually able to get out of the house and everything, seeing some kind of counselor to get an outside perspective on things, someone who's not emotionally involved in the situation, it really benefited me as well.
Right. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I think we kind of covered everything we needed to. Honestly, I thank you very much for doing this. Yeah, I guess you're a really awesome person. I'm happy we connected. I hope we stay in touch.
I
Um,
am too. I was going to ask you that if you would like to connect over like social media and stuff, and that way we
yeah,
can follow each other.
yeah, please do. Like I said, when this episode does come out beforehand, I will ask for your book and I'll put it in the description and all that. And
Okay.
but yeah, I think like, we need to, not just you and I, but people with disabilities and just people going through a struggle. We need to support each other more, because we can't we,
Agreed.
we can't keep waiting for able bodies or whoever to come save us. The reality of it is, like, we are the voice, and if we don't put it out there, no one's ever going to hear it. We're not going to keep people alive, and we're not going to, we need more of us. There's just not enough of us out here doing it. Like I said, I'm very happy that everything turned out the way it did for you, as far as being able to, thrive through it. Obviously, everyone in your family is okay. It sucks that you're going through pain, but again, we all got something to deal with.
We
Uh,
do. I mean, everybody has something to deal with, and that's what I tell myself all the time. But
yeah,
yeah, it was super nice to meet you. I'm glad we finally got to get connected.
yeah. Let me see here.